Battleborn, Paladins, Overwatch, three similar looking games in an untapped genre from three completely different companies, all appearing at nearly the same time. All these games are in a group that's being called hero shooters, which is a genre that's currently being almost completely dominated by Team Fortress 2. It's amazing that it took as long as it did to get a true competitor to TF2, but now we suddenly have three similar games to choose from. So because of that, I wanted to make this video to give a brief explanation of each of these three games, what they are, what they aren't, and what I think about them. I'll also go over some controversial topics dealing with one of these companies, so that should be pretty interesting. Battleborn is Gearbox Software's entry to the roster. For those of you who don't know, these are the same guys behind the Borderlands franchise, and for those of you who do know, it becomes very obvious very quickly that this is a Gearbox Software title. The Gearbox humor is there, and the art style, while different, feels very familiar. Another thing that'll feel familiar about Battleborn is the fact that in addition to a shooter, Battleborn has some RPG elements such as level ups and a skill tree. Well, it's not actually a tree, more of a pillar, but the idea is there. This game isn't a story-based RPG with a long campaign like Borderlands is, however. You can either go in with a team of friends or use the game's matchmaking system and tackle a little mission one at a time. These are small instance scenarios with various objectives that last about half an hour each, and while they don't offer anything particularly exciting or new, they're a fun romp and a great way to experiment with new characters. What won't feel familiar, though, is the competitive multiplayer modes. Of the three games that I'm covering in this video, Battleborn is the one that is most like a MOBA, like Smite, League of Legends, Dota, etc. That's right, it's an FPS and a MOBA at the same time. We don't see that very often. There's lanes, creeps, jungle and mercenary monsters, level ups, rolls, pretty much everything except a shop. In place of the shop is various points on the map where you can spend shards you earn throughout the match on buildings such as defensive turrets, accelerator nodes, and healing stations. In fact, purchasing these are your principal means of leveling up in this mode, so being aggressive and killing minions for cash and collecting the bits of shards lying on the map will help you level up much more quickly, increasing your effectiveness. It's a weird system, but we'll touch on that in a bit. Because this takes a lot of elements from MOBAs, we should talk about the characters. There are 25 different characters at the time of making this video, and each character has its own personality and its own lore that you can unlock as you play that character, as well as its own moveset. Unlike most MOBA titles, however, Battleborn is a fully priced AAA game with a $60 price tag, so you won't find any microtransactions for anything but cosmetic items. Characters are simply unlocked by playing the game and reaching a predetermined account level. Frankly, this is a refreshing change, but it seems weird to me that you have to unlock them at all. Personally, after having spent some time in Battleborn with the recent open beta, I like the game quite a bit and I see a lot of potential in it. But my friends really don't. Match lengths are long in both multiplayer and single player, often pushing half an hour. The game doesn't do a very good job of displaying information like experience earned or what tasks give you how much experience and stuff like that. The game is one of the most visually noisy games I've ever played, and often it feels like you're fighting red bars in a cloud of overbearing visual effects. Just like any other MOBA though, some characters have stuns, and I personally am of the opinion that stuns are one of the worst elements of game design when it comes to multiplayer. But I won't get too into that into this video, but I will make a video some point in the future ranting about that, maybe soon. But anyway, all I have to say is that getting stunned in first person feels 10 times as awful as getting stunned in any other style of game. And finally, I mentioned that there are shards that you can collect around the map in multiplayer. I really hate this mechanic, but it's pretty much the fastest way to farm shards. And farming more shards means you can buy more buildings, which means you level up faster, which means you're just gonna do better in the match. This, I think, is the worst part of the game. It rewards breaking off from the actual gameplay to go back into the recesses of your own base to collect these, rather than staying on the front lines and actually fighting. And if you don't, your character level suffers for it, and as you fall behind in levels, you die more, guaranteeing a terrible time for you, and probably some rage from your teammates. Frankly, I think this is an awful design that holds back an otherwise very solid entry into the genre. And yes, that was a lot of negatives, but like I said, I actually really enjoy the game, so don't let that turn you off unless some of those are like huge red flags for you. But anyway, if you're looking for a game that offers some co-op action similar to Borderlands and you don't mind the MOBA nature of the multiplayer, then look into picking this one up. Personally, I'm looking forward to playing more when it finally releases in May, even if I won't be able to get my friends to join me. Here we go. Paladins is Hi-Rez Studios' entry to the roster. Hi-Rez is responsible for games such as Smite, Tribes Ascend, and my personal favorite, Global Agenda. Paladins is an objective-based shooter that is constantly in flux. I've played this game and seen gameplay of it in bursts, and it's different every time. When I first heard of Paladins, you leveled up in the match, which created power disparity as level ups tend to do. You could select cards as you leveled up to fit the situation that the enemy team is presenting to you, and you could tailor your build to what you're facing. By the time I got to start playing, it was completely different. There were no level ups anymore. You picked a character and you went into a match with a deck that you built outside of the match, a loadout of sorts, but character itself is kind of like a loadout already, so it's a loadout on top of a loadout? Then I played again a few days later, and the deck system had changed from unique cards with different rarities to rarities being no more than a strength level of a given effect. And just the other day I was watching Force Strategy Gaming's stream of the game, and it had changed again, like the whole main game mode changed from what I had played to something completely different that's more akin to a payload style of game. I don't get it. And on top of that, it's round-based and you earn money to buy burner cards between matches like you buy guns in Counter-Strike. What? There are 13 characters at the time I'm making this video, and there will probably be a steady stream of new ones as the game lives on, and that's kinda cool. What's not really cool though is the model that Hi-Rez is going for with this title. Most of the characters are locked behind a currency wall that you can get either through microtransactions or playing the game, but that's not really the crappy part. That's kind of par for the course, right? But the crappy part is in the deck system that I mentioned. There are dozens of cards, I think around 40 or so, to unlock per character. These cards are how you specialize and customize these characters to specific builds. The ability to specialize is pretty interesting in itself, but unlocking cards in each category is random. And if you're unlucky, it could cost you a ton of gold to unlock that single card you need for the build you want to play. Luckily, duplicates don't seem to be a thing here, but it still feels really cheap, and your effectiveness in combat is 100% directly affected by these decks. This, in its current state, puts it pretty close, if not already over the line of pay to win. And that's not cool. Back to the characters though, they all feel rather bland and uninspired. None of them really felt like they had any character at all in spite of their stylized design, and the actual gameplay is also very underwhelming. The maps that are available are huge and feel very poorly designed with no real coherency of thought to them. The characters are ludicrously unbalanced, possibly due to the nature of the deck system changing as often as it does, and the shooting feels strangely bad. Some characters seem to have an arbitrary range limit on their gun, which it would be fine if the maps were designed around that, but these maps are very wide open. This means that you can fire at someone who's sitting still but happens to be very far away from you, and you never hit because your bullet just kind of disappears in mid-air before it reaches them. Because of the nature of first-person shooters, this feels terrible. And because of the map size, you'll be spending a lot of time on your mount. Yes, there's mounts in this first-person shooter, traveling to objectives, which is pretty boring. As you can tell, I don't really have much good to say about this title. I'm really disappointed because Paladins is a game that I really wanted to like. I've been a fan of Hi-Rez since I discovered Global Agenda, and then when Smite came out, I easily spent hundreds and hundreds of hours playing that game to death with my friends. Between enjoying Global Agenda as much as I did and the respect I had for them for releasing a free-to-play MOBA where you can just outright buy all the characters for a measly $30 as a one-time purchase, Hi-Rez was one of my favorite studios for a number of years. And yes, you heard me right, I said was. And I did that on purpose. It's not just because this game is really bad, but it's because of some of the research that I recently did in the wake of my disappointment of this game. I mentioned that I loved Global Agenda. Hi-Rez announced Global Agenda 2 a few years ago, but somehow it got canned and turned into this mess. I'm not the only one either. Sure, this game has its fans, but the Paladins subreddit has plenty of people lamenting the direction of the game and becoming increasingly frustrated with the myriad of issues that it faces. The Global Agenda 2 subreddit is even more depressing, with people cursing Hi-Rez for turning Global Agenda to shit and turning their much-anticipated Global Agenda 2 into the terrible mess that Paladins is currently. I even found a post on that subreddit from an ex-Hi-Rez employee talking about how awesome the level she's working on for Battleborn is gonna be. Yeah, even employees seem to be jumping ship to the better games. This part may seem out of nowhere, but trust me, it's relevant. But let's take a look at some highlights from recent Glassdoor reviews of Hi-Rez. If you don't know, Glassdoor is a website where you can review employers. This is only a small sample size, but it's pretty damning. These are all negative points, by the way. Pandering to the CEO's personal fads or tastes. Project direction changed daily, sometimes hourly, based on the most recent fad the CEO had been exposed to. Regularly, employees would try to find work that wasn't immediately relevant to the day's plan, as it was expected that it would be thrown away once the CEO returned from lunch. An employee once described, as a coping mechanism, their work as crafting mandalas and wiping them away at the end of the day. On various occasions, the CEO requested that female characters be improved by hypersexualizing them. Ethically questionable business model practices. Whichever new character was to be sold would constantly be playtested by the CEO, but if the CEO was not victorious at the end of the playtest, the character would be made more powerful. This pattern led to newer characters being unfairly capable in competition, motivating the players to purchase the latest character, only to have them properly balanced for fairness after the fact. "He pays your bills, just do it," was a frequently used line when voicing opinions on the outrageous design decisions made by Erez. Erez? I'm gonna say Erez. And finally, if you did bad in a Smite playtest, Erez would flip out and make sure you are never in a playtest that he's involved in again. Everyone would yell and scream at each other and try to be the best. If you actually used the playtest to test, you would get called out for not helping your team win the battle. Let Erez win, don't beat him too much or he will get mad. That's just a few bullet points on some pretty large posts. I encourage you to go check out the negative reviews on Glassdoor, and I'll put a link in the description below so you can do that. These few bullet points I highlighted, however, are enormous red flags in my eyes. It paints a picture of a company, or at least big decision makers, that don't give a shit about the players or a good experience, and that it's more about making the CEO happy. Reading these was a huge letdown to me because I really did like this company. Never meet your idols, I guess. The only thing Paladins has going for it is that, unlike the other two, it's free to play, even if it's a little pay to win. If you really can't afford one of the two better games in this video, go play some games on Newgrounds instead. You'll probably have a better time. Overwatch is the best. The end. End video. It's done. Oh, I guess I could give you a little more than that. It's probably no surprise that Overwatch is my favorite between the three. I'm a huge fan of Blizzard and grew up playing Warcraft, StarCraft, and Diablo, but I'd like to think that it's more than just pure fanboyism that brings this game up to the top for me. Overwatch is a shooter, period. I mean, that's all there really is to it. If you played Team Fortress 2 back when it initially released in 2007 before all the new guns, add about 12 more heroes for a total of 21, then you'll have Overwatch. From a gameplay standpoint, that's really it. Each of the 21 characters is completely unique though, with almost no overlap in their abilities. And each of these characters has their role, their weaknesses, their strengths, and their synergies. It's clear that a lot of thought and care went into all these characters, and even though each one has a completely different playstyle, each one of them manages to stay fun. And more than different playstyles, each character has a ton of actual character. Blizzard, for as long as I've been a fan of them, have never just made a game. They make stories, they make worlds, they make characters and experiences, and they've only gotten better at it over their decades of experience. They've brought that passion to Overwatch and created a whole universe around the game that really breathes life into it. It may seem like a silly reason to praise a game outside of the gameplay like this, but Blizzard's commitment to the heroes and the world really offer a coherence of design that makes the game stand out among its peers. It's possible that Battleborn has this strength too, but unfortunately I haven't spent enough time with it to really know. But what I do know is that Paladins lacks any of this, which is a huge reason that I feel it fails so hard. A lot can be added to a game with well-done character banter, beautiful animated skits, and thoughtful artistic direction. And meanwhile, in Paladins, the newest female character has some really impractical underboob. And finally, the level design is really good. It's hard to really say more than that. I'm trying, but I can't really find anything to complain about with the level design at all. They're varied, visually interesting, and a lot of fun, all for their own reasons. GameSpot recently released a 3-part documentary about Overwatch, its team, and the development challenges and design philosophies, and I highly recommend watching it. I'll put a link to it at the end of this video and in the description below so you can watch it later, but the reason I brought it up is because of this specific still from one of the videos. In this part of the video, they're talking about their level design philosophy, and there was a still of this plaque, and I'll read it out. "We must always remember that this is a game about heroes first and foremost. With that in mind, each map needs to fade into the background a bit. The heroes are the lead actors in our movie, and the maps are there to support the heroes and make them seem even more awesome. Because we're so focused on the hero, each level should be built in a way that allows players to figure out awesome, sandboxy moments. The maps should create as much opportunity as possible for player creativity with hero abilities. Up close and personal spaces will highlight the flavor and personality of each hero." This may not seem like a lot to you, but to me this highlights a thoughtfulness and design that just seems to be missing from the other two titles. A thoughtfulness backed by the decades of experience of not only making games, but playing them. One thing I didn't know about Blizzard before watching that documentary I mentioned is that while they're known for their real-time strategy and RPG titles, many of their core members are hardcore first-person shooter players. They're the kind of people who would spend countless hours in the likes of Counter-Strike and Team Fortress, Half-Life Deathmatch, Quake, and many other fast-paced arcade shooters, so they know what shooters want. And judging by the hype behind this game, and my own love for it, they were right. Overwatch is the game you want if you want a pure shooter. Its purity of design means that it's by far the easiest to just pick up and play with no knowledge of the game. And Blizzard has proven themselves as a game development studio that you can look to for a good time. Again, I'm a huge Blizzard fan, so take my praise with a grain of salt. Also, their price of entry is a little bit weird. $40 for PC, but $60 for Xbone and PS4? But there are guaranteed to be no microtransactions to split the player base or change the gameplay, so that's pretty awesome. Oh wow, this was a much longer video than I was expecting to make, but I hope you enjoyed it. Please, please, please let me know if you did by hitting that like button, and let me know what you think of my breakdown of these games in the comment section below. And be sure to check out Danny O'Dwyer's video about Overwatch on GameSpot's channel by clicking here. And if you want to see more of my videos, then you can click here to see the last video I made ranting about shitty games. Or, if you want to see more stuff from me in the future, you can hit that subscribe button, and I will see you next time.